Hey, it's Christopher Cardinal, and you're listening to the super fantastic above average racing spectacular. Hey, everyone out there. Hope you're having a good week. Hope everyone is well and seasons change. Hopefully everyone's enjoying the cooler temperatures as we head into the month of October. And this is episode number 5 of our program, and thank you for listening. I hope you're going to enjoy what we're going to be covering today. We have a lot of meat on the bone, so let's get started here. Today we're going to cover a wide variety of topics in the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series, the fallout from the Roval, the mysterious enigma that was the Roval. Was that a interesting structure? That was quite the race, wasn't it? Was it not? Hailie Deegan wins the K&N race, 17 years old, tremendous upside. We'll touch on that a bit, and also we're going to set up Dover. Round 2 of the round of 12 for the playoffs. Tell you who to keep an eye on at Dover and who I think may advance to the next round, and what drivers might be looking at the outside looking in once the dust settles at Kansas in a couple of weeks, and also what's next for the 4 eliminated drivers from the round of 16. And also, we touched on last episode, we speculated on the day before, became official the next day, the Friday. Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemric are going to race in full-time in the Cup Series in 2019. Rookie of the Year candidates for their respective teams. Let's get started with the Roval. The fallout from that, well, it depends. The reviews for this race and the opinions are divided. Some people really enjoyed this event, thought it was unique, and others who thought this was one big clusterfuck and should not be. Elimination race should have not been raced on this surface, or this kind of event should have been maybe later in the playoffs, or not an elimination race. Well, yeah, Talladega, that was an elimination race for years. And I think this was done strategically by NASCAR to gauge the interest of the viewership, raise the viewership up, and the viewership was really well for this race. It was up from last year's event at Charlotte, the fall event on the Oval, and so this was I guess in terms of marketing and ratings, this was a victory for NASCAR. It caused a lot of chaos on the track, but it also intrigued a lot of viewers, and also some fans of the sport. Gave them something to. It was a twist on it was basically a new twist on a classic, and this racetrack, the Charlotte Motor Speedway, is a microcosm in NASCAR, and it really is good to see that this was much better than anticipated. I thought, in my humble opinion, I thought this was a better race than what it could have been, and the aftermath and the chaos that ensued later, we're going to touch on here in a minute. So again, is the jury still out on, is this something that everyone really enjoyed, or should even be? And it's going to be raced again next season. It is on the schedule for next year in 2019. We're going to just go back to the whole playoffs and the 10 races that are selected, and you lose New Hampshire, you throw Richmond in there. This year, a little bit later, you have the Vegas race. So in the years to come, I know next year they already released the 2019 schedule, so there's not going to be any changes there. But 2020, and I think some other drivers have said the same as well, it would be interesting for NASCAR to shake this up and actually flip some of the races. Let's not have Homestead Miami as the finale. The Roval was the finale. And it just causes so many crazy scenarios. And you can armchair quarterback it till the cows come home. And there is no right or wrong solution. It's just, I think, to engage viewers and to... And this sport is really on the tail end. A lot of as you said, different drivers exiting the sport, different drivers entering into the Cup Series to gauge the interest of, to gauge the interest of some newer viewers and some new fans, casual fans maybe, and then the loyal, faithful fans that have followed the sport for decades. I think restructuring the final 10 races and not having Homestead Miami always as the finale, and maybe switching the races every 2 years or every season. Maybe keep some of the same tracks, the 10 tracks. No objection to, I like the setup they have, the 10 tracks that make up the playoffs this season. But maybe just to alter the actual times and dates of these races. It's only one night event in the playoff this year. There's traditionally, as years gone by, 2 years ago was the last time that this Charlotte event was run in the evening, as it was run during the day, and it's competing with the NFL ratings in the fall. So to see the viewership up and to see actually people tuning into a playoff race in NASCAR in October, late September, October, is a testament to the intrigue that was provided by the racing action at the Roval. So Ryan Blaney survived the Roval, I guess you could say. He collects his first win of 2018, leads 16 laps, and had a good run most of the day. He was in, as I said, he would lead some laps there, but he was in the right place, right time. Snatches victory from the jaws of defeat, kind of capitalized on the tangle for Truex Jr. and Johnson, which we're going to touch on in a great length. We're going to go long form in this one in a few moments. But career win number 2 is he would win Pocono and a nail biter with Kevin Harvick in June of 2017. That was his first career win. So he advances to the next round in the playoff. Penske finding a way to get themselves all 3 cars into the next round. 2 top 5s in the first round of the playoffs. So Penske is Penske Power. So the winners of the last 4 of the 5 races. Penske is, as we said in previous episodes, as we started this podcast, when Penske went on that hot run with Keselowski. Penske it's become a tale of 2 seasons here. You have the big 3, the dominant 3, Truex, Harvick, Kyle Busch, versus the Penske shift here with the Penske drivers who have all, for just sort of had a lackluster season, was good enough to make the playoffs, remained in the hunt, but now are actually going neck and neck with the big 3 and setting up for one interesting showdown for the next 3 races for playoff supremacy here. So 2 top 5s in the first round of the playoffs. And as I said, the Penske cars are winners of 4 of the last 5 races. That is mighty impressive. So what now? The next 3 races, as we said, it's sort of become the showdown between the 2 entities that is the big 3 and the Penske team. So Dover, the big 3 has won 4 of the last 6 races. So the Harvick in the fall of 15, Truex in the fall of 2016, and Busch in the fall of 2017. So I see a pattern here. These guys, and this is a playoff race. Dover would be the second race into the playoff in previous years. So now it's the first of the round of 12. So there's a good chance one of the big 3 could win in Dover. We'll get into the statistics later. Keselowski won there in the fall of 12, so he puts himself in there. There's an opportunity at Dover that Penske, and Joey Logano, as I said, has run really well in the Xfinity Series. Hasn't quite translated into the Cup level, but he knows how to get around Delaware really well. So Talladega, Penske has won 6 of the last 8 races there. 5 career wins for Keselowski at Talladega, so the spring of 14, and Logano in the fall of 15, and I think Talladega is one of those races where, not an elimination race, thankfully, for some of the competitors this year. It still doesn't ease any of the stress, as this is race number 2. Could be a critical race for the drivers who don't manage a good finish at Dover. Puts them in a precarious position going into Kansas the next week, which is going to be an elimination race. And so you had Keselowski do it in the spring of 16. Logano in the fall of 16, and then Keselowski again in the fall of 17. He survived that demolition derby that was Talladega last year, and Logano here in the spring of 18, his only win that propelled him to the playoffs. And for the big three, Martin Truex Jr.'s never won at Talladega, and Busch won there back in 14, I believe. And the last time I think the last time the big three won a race was for Harvick in the spring of 10. Busch would have won in 2008. So the big three shutout at Talladega would seem to be, as I said, Penske winning 6 of the last 8 races there, seem to have ownership of Talladega, have made it their own and find ways to win there, where the big three has been on a dry spell there as of late. As I said, Talladega is one of those tracks where anybody can win. You got to be in the right place at the right time. If you're in the draft, you have a chance. You have a fighting chance. So Kansas, the big three. So if it does shift to where some of the drivers that are not in that conversation, the automatics to advance that people would obviously gravitate to, and that's the big three. Penske, maybe Chase Elliott, but Kansas City, the big three has won the last 5 races there. Harvick in the fall of 16, Busch in the spring of 16, Truex went on to sweep the track completely in 17, and Harvick wins there in the spring of 18. But for Logano, who won 2 fall races there at 14 and 15, and Keselowski won there in June of 11, and that win was significant for Keselowski in June of 11. I think that's where that was Keselowski's coming out party. That's where Keselowski really turned a lot of heads and was starting to make waves and become an elite top tier driver in the Cup Series. And Logano, those wins in the fall, 14 and 15 years that he was among the favorites to win the championship. So that race, and it's still a couple weeks out. We don't know really what's going to transpire at Dover. Can't really armchair quarterback this. Yet to be seen. Just have to wait and see. So as I said, Blaney wins that. Wins the Roval. That's not much more I can say about that. I just watched the last lap is what I'll tell you, but we'll touch on that later. So Jimmie McMurray has a second place run, nearly steals one from the playoff contenders, which has been known to do previous years, where McMurray seems to win. I'm not going to say wins when it doesn't count. Winning is always something that is difficult to come by, and anytime you win at any capacity in the season, I don't think you can say he's winning when it's always going to count. It's not going to count towards playoff points, or if you're not in the running for the championship, then it's always nice to win a race. And so this is his best finish since Texas, where he finished 3rd in April. Pretty certain, as we know, he will not be likely to be in any capacity, maybe even racing in this series next season. So it's going to be the nice way to end his career if this is indeed the end for Jimmie McMurray. His past glory, as I said, he's Captain Clutch when it comes to be in the fall. He's won at Charlotte, this track in 2010, where he was not in the playoff picture, but got himself a nice victory there at Charlotte. And he won his first career race in 2002, subbing for Sterling Marlin at Charlotte. So Talladega, he also would win in 2013. So like I said, he has a knack for winning these races late in the fall. He seems to just, psych himself up for the end of the season or into the next, try to build some momentum. Whatever the case may be, he runs extremely well in the fall and brings home a very good finish here. And this is a good addition for him if he is going to continue, which he's expressed the desire to do, past 2018. There's not a lot of seats available, but in any case, this helps his cause. I don't see how this would hinder his opportunity to find employment for 2019. So good finish for Jimmie McMurray. Nice to see the Ganassi car, the number 1 up front, and finish second. So Clint Bowyer staves off elimination. Quite obvious, he has a 3rd place finish here. So he's back and going 5th in the standings as to start round 2, where he was in round number 1. This is the first time since 2013 that he's advanced to the round of 12. And for the next round, what can we see out of Clint Bowyer? I think Clint Bowyer is one of those drivers that would be relatively safe to make it into the round of 8. And there's no guarantees, but out of the 4 Stewart-Haas cars as of late, he's been the weaker link there. As Kurt Busch has been fairly consistent, and Eric Almirola is having, to me, a career year. And Harvick's Harvick. You can never count Kevin Harvick out unless he's behind the wall or his engine's gone or he scrapes the wall. This Kevin Harvick, anytime he's on the track, he is in position to win any race at any time. So Dover for Clint Bowyer. He led 40 laps in the spring, had a second place finish there. He can have a similar run or even best that position by 1, win the race. Would get into the next round. 2-time Talladega winner, and then that was in the fall as well, 2010, 2011. And he was 3rd in both races in 2014. He knows how to get around. He's won past Gloria Talladega. That could be another race that this team could prepare themselves for and to get into that next event, the next round of 12. And at Kansas, his home track, he's never won there. He's had a lot of success there in the Cup Series. His 2 top 5 finishes in 20 career starts, and he had the runner-up finish there in the fall of 2011. So we'll get into Clint Bowyer and the other playoff drivers, how I think they'll perform in the next round a little bit later on in the program here. And Alex Bowman, 4th place, driver that I think most people would penciled into their bracket to not make it past the round of 16. Here he is, 3rd top 5 of the season. Most impressive, I think, of any of the Hendrick drivers this season, as well as Chase Elliott finally would claim victory. Johnson had his struggles, and William Byron is still acclimating and finding his way in the Cup Series. Give him time. Alex Bowman's exceeded expectations of this car, and regardless of where he finishes here in the end, where he makes the round of 8 or not, Alex Bowman is. You have to commend Alex Bowman on a really impressive 2018 season. Now he advances to round 12. This is a major accomplishment. And I think he's making the 8. And as I said in a previous episode, I think he's making the 88 his own. This is not seen as he's in Dale Jr.'s car anymore. This is Alex Bowman's car. The 88 is his. So we have a limited sample size of what he can do in the next 3 races, as he's raced for, as I said, prior to this season, underfunded teams. And it's Tommy Baldwin Racing and BK Racing. We're trying to compete like everyone else, had a fighting chance, and it's nothing disparaging on them. It's just this is the best equipment Alex Bowman's ever been in, arguably. And we don't know really what he can do at these tracks. There's not a large enough sample size to analyze. Is he going to be in position to win at Dover or win at Kansas? But Talladega, as I said, the history of the 88, and the guy who used to drive this car, Dale Jr., was stellar at Talladega. So if he can channel some of that energy from his previous, from his predecessor there in the 88, maybe they just go for it. They have an all or nothing attitude. Go for it. Try to win Talladega. Be in the right place at the right time. He's done really well in restrictor plate racing. In the 88, was in Daytona when he had did really well in the exhibition race, the shootout, and did really well in the 500. So if he can kind of capture some of that same glory, some of that same magic in Talladega, that would be this team's, and it's, I think, this team's best opportunity to get themselves in position to qualify for round number 3, and that's the final 8 drivers of the playoff in the round 3. I think if he can find a way to get in the right position, the right time, Alex Bowman could be right in there, thick of things, and competing for the championship. Kurt Busch, so the pole sitter, finishes 5th at the Roval. Seems to be back on a good foot after a bit of off week. Last week at Richmond, this is his first top 5 since the Bristol win. It's been one quietly, as I said, all season. It's been one of Stewart Haas Racing's most consistent drivers. Hasn't really was really patient all year till Bristol got himself in position to win. Was in the playoffs, and he was going to lock himself in on points regardless if he had won Bristol or not. So his Dover record is he won in 2011 in the fall. He was fifth here in the spring, so he gets around Dover really well. Talladega, he was second in the spring. He has 2 top 5s in the last 4 races at Talladega. Same scenario here. Talladega could be his best opportunity to steal one and get in. I think Kurt Busch is one of those drivers that has the championship experience behind him. The impending departure from this 41 car, I think, will play a small factor in how far this team will end up. As far as getting into the round of 8, I'd say he would be not a shoe-in, but he would be at least 75% to 80% secured. Kansas, he was second in the fall of 2017. He was driving for, and also when he was the runner-up, as he was driving for Furniture Row in the fall of 2013. And he was 8th in the spring race at Kansas. So he was second there, as I said, last fall. Did some testing there. Has put himself, as they said, whatever they did in the test could translate to success in 2 weeks at Kansas and get him in a position where you could have, what a concept that would be to have all 4 Stewart Haas cars in the Final Four. And I thought that would be pretty cool. And now, as you said, that was the triumphs. Those are some of the high spots of the Roval. And now let's go to some of the not so impressive statistics and the chaos that ensued on that structure. There was issues for a lot of the playoff drivers. As we know, Johnson and Truex Jr. tangle on the final lap. Truex Jr. looks like he's on his way to certain victory. Jimmie Johnson, nothing to lose, all or nothing, puts it all out there, goes for it, gets caught up. Truex wrecks. Well, Johnson wrecks and inadvertently catches Truex, ending his hopes of a victory. And he was secured into the next round based on his points and consistency. He had a marvelous playoff run to start. And here with Johnson, I'm going to defend him on this. I know there's been a lot of people who armchair quarterback, a lot of trolls out there who are scolding Johnson and crucifying him for going for the win. He simply didn't intend to wreck him. He needed to win to get it. So why are we scolding the guy? Why are we burning the cross for him trying to advance his position? He had a tough season. And this seems like, again, I'm not going to put. Here's a quote from Jeff Gordon. The reason why Jimmie Johnson has 83 wins and 7 championships, it doesn't matter if it's 10th, 5th, or 1st. That guy goes for it, and that's what he's there to do. He's there to win races, not to run 3rd, not to run 4th. But anytime he's in that position where he can win, he's going to go for it, and rightfully he should. And this was a quote from Johnson after this event. I was going for the win. Wins are so important. Could have taken the safe route, and I didn't. So what he's saying there is he could have just had a good finish, laid off, just let it play out. You finish second place, but you don't qualify. You don't make the next round if you finish second. He was in a position he had to win. His back was to the wall. It's the only way he was going to advance to the next round. He took a calculated risk, and it didn't pay off for him. And Truex was on his way to certain victory. This is last-ditch effort for Johnson. And he had yet to win this season, and it's been frustrating for him. It has to be. To see the 48 car struggle the way they did this year, that whole group. And then, you know what? If they would have made, I'm going to say this, and I think it's fairly accurate. I think it's an accurate assessment to make if you've been watching the season unfold as it has. If Johnson is as clutch as he has been in the previous years and as dangerous as he can be in this playoff setting, he's one of the most successful drivers in NASCAR history. I think he's really leveraged the playoffs and the way the points are structured and how the championships are awarded. He's played really well into his favor. That's why he has collected the hardware he's collected. He wouldn't advance past the next round, I don't think. He's really good at Dover, as we're going to talk about later. He's had a lot of success at all three of the tracks that we're going to in the next few weeks. And this isn't the same team. It's just the fire has gone out for them this season. And now he's just holding on to whatever he can to get that last-ditch effort for a win. He wants to keep that streak alive. He's won in every season since his rookie season in 2002. Wants to keep that streak alive. His opportunities are dwindling to do that. You had to go for it. Just can't fault him on this. I really can't. I think Truex overreacted, and it was a real Bush League move to wreck him after the fact, after the checker flag, in my opinion. Truex Jr. had already, and I know the frustration probably was boiling over there, that this team is also facing, had faced adversity in the last few weeks, and they announced they were shutting down. We all know the story for Furniture. We're not going to touch too much on that, but Truex Jr. wants to end this on a high note. Wants to give the swan song all he has, and it wouldn't have made a difference. It's the padded stats at this point. He's on to the next round. It's the momentum building, and I understand why he wanted to win. Johnson didn't do anything incorrect here. He made it was a mental error on his part. He went for it. He owned up to his mistakes, and he's not in the next round. I think it's time to stop analyzing that last lap. Just let it go. It's over. It is now a thing of the past, and it's time to move on. For Johnson will focus on getting win 84, and Truex Jr. will focus on putting himself in a position to end Furniture Row Racing's tenure in the Cup Series as champions, back-to-back champions. So just leave it as that. Johnson would go on to finish 8th in the race, Truex 14th, and that slip-up allows Blaney to sneak through and steal one from the big boys on the crazy structure that was the Roval. Eric Almirola 19th, Kyle Larson 25th. This is, again, trolls, and I don't know where people get their bullshit and their conspiracy theories. You just got way too much fucking time on your hands if you got to sit there and dissect every fucking move these drivers make and spin it to some kind of ridiculous theatrical soap opera. Okay, I'm not going to get hot about trolls. I've done that previous episodes, and I'm in a really, really good state of mind right now. I'm not really going to focus on it anyway. But, okay, so Larson still could have been eliminated. He needed to get the one position on Jeffrey Earnhardt. Daniel Hemric wrecks Jeffrey Earnhardt, gets into Jeffrey Earnhardt, and Larson gets by him to finish 25th, needs that one position to advance. At one point, it was uncertain if Larson had not advanced, and Johnson actually would have made it through. So that was close. What a close call. Quick brush there with impending doom there for Larson, but he makes it through. Wins the tiebreaker, staves off elimination. But the conspiracy, I think that this guy wrecked Earnhardt, and there's such criticism of Jeffrey Earnhardt. People have gone out to criticize his driving ability. They've gone out to criticize his name, who he is. Come on, people, stop it. You're gonna go and drive a stake through someone's heart, and for what? Jeffrey Earnhardt is out there, and he's not in top tier equipment. He's never been. We know Jeffrey Earnhardt's statistics. Jeffrey Earnhardt statistically is not a great driver. He's got a famous last name from his grandfather. His uncle is Dale Jr. Yeah, okay, we know the whole story of Jeffrey Earnhardt, but to go out here and to again just rip apart someone you don't even know or know anything about what goes on, and these other teams that show up that are the lower tier, you could call them, not the top tier teams. They're out there to make a living for their families. They're out there to compete and to potentially, as I said, as Jeffrey Earnhardt has never been in a position where he was in top tier equipment. I just don't think he would wreck purposely to do a solid for someone else in the field. That has no impact on him. If Jeffrey Earnhardt, I don't know. I'm just not gonna. It's just a racing deal. He got into it with Daniel Hemric. Larson was fortunate enough to stave off elimination, slide through. Luck was on his side that day. Leave it at that. So Keselowski has been on as we all know, we've talked a lot about Brad Keselowski on this program. Went all for naught. He went for, again, unconventional style for this event, how he approached the Roval, was going for the win, wrecked out, leads 29 laps. He certainly played strategy here and was trying to make that work for him. Just didn't stick. Like I said, it's like anytime you're racing and in a structure that was so unpredictable as this, you just put your best effort to the wall. You throw shit to the wall and hope it sticks, right? And if it sticks, you get spaghetti dinner. And that's what Keselowski did. He had an opportunity like anyone else. He tried something unconventional, didn't work out for him. Had nothing to lose as he had already advanced by virtue of winning the race at Las Vegas. There's nothing for him to lose. He went for it. It didn't work out for him. He's on to the next round. He's just not going to collect the checkered flag here. So it was a really low risk for him to even try to get the victory here. But he went for it, found the concrete structure, and the rest is history. So Kyle Busch would finish 32nd. He'd find some issues on the track too, and much to the chagrin of some of his followers, didn't have a good race. Couldn't make history. If he would have won the Roval, he would have run on all the racetracks. We all know the story of that, and we'll have to wait till next year. And Austin Dillon crashes out on lap 67. Dismal finish for him. Back to the drawing board for RCR and Austin Dillon. And Eric Jones will finish 30th. Just had a miserable accounting in the playoffs. Just get some valuable seat time for him, hopefully. And so, like I said, Larson, by virtue of his run at Vegas, second. Almirola, fifth at Richmond. Defeat Johnson in the tiebreaker. That sends him to the house, as we all know. And that whole thing with, like I said, the Larson-Earnhardt conspiracy is ridiculous. So now where the four eliminated drivers go from here. Johnson, as I said, a mental error cost him an opportunity to move on to the next round. Put the elimination in the rearview mirror. And I think if anyone can do that, it's going to be Jimmie Johnson. He has the mental toughness, 7-time champion, consummate professional, who's going to put this behind him, focus on building this program, getting the 48 back to supremacy in 2019. He said he's trying to keep that streak alive. It'll be the first time. This is the first time since 2015 he hasn't made the round of 2. The second round, the round of 12, excuse me. And a year later, look what he did. He won 5 races and he wins the championship in 16. Are you gonna write this guy off just yet? Foolish people if you're gonna do that. I know he's gonna. Okay, this is where he is with his career. Focus is on keeping that win streak alive, I think. So you say, what's next for Jimmie Johnson? It's just to continue to move up the record books, move up the ladder. Doesn't have to do anything. This individual could just retire tomorrow from the sport, never race again, never put on the fire suit, never strap on the helmet. Hall of Fame, first round Hall of Famer, without a doubt. Needs to do absolutely nothing the rest of his career. But I think in the end, you're going to see him fourth all-time on the wins list. Wins list is going to be behind Jeff Gordon. I don't think he's going to quite catch him, 93. Johnson just doesn't have a whole lot of wins in him. He may have the one championship left in him. We'll see what happens there. But for Dover, going into Dover, this is what he can look forward to. And he could still squeak out a win by the end of the year. I don't think there's a sense of urgency to do so. I think this Roval mishap isn't going to be something that's going to paralyze him going forward. So he has Dover, he has 11 wins at Dover. Could very well find himself back in the winner's circle this coming weekend. Who knows? He has 5 of those wins of the 11 were in the fall event. Talladega, he's got 2 wins, but those are both in the spring. Seems to run better in the spring there. Talladega, 3 wins at Kansas. 2 of those were in the fall race. Martinsville, 9 wins, 6 of them in the fall race. And again, that just places like that, and you're having the kind of season Johnson's had where the expectations, they didn't quite live up to them, or it's been an off year. Going to a place like Martinsville, or even here at Dover, a place where you've won double digits at Dover, 1 win away from double digits at Martinsville. These are the kind of tracks I think the 48 is going to circle on the calendar and do their best efforts, do their due diligence to try to. They don't care about, at this point, the playoff picture. They're not concerned. They're eliminated. So now it's the focus on taking the checkered flag. It's not about points or whatever the case may be. And it just has 2 teammates in contention for a championship. And I think he wouldn't do anything to jeopardize Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman's positioning. But I think at this point, Johnson has to focus on just getting the victory, not worrying about what's going to happen with the rest of the season, some of the other playoff contenders. If he's in a position maybe to help a teammate out, of course he's going to do that. But I think going into Phoenix, he's got 4 wins. 3 of those are in the fall. And he also won at Homestead when he claimed the championship trophy in 2016. It's an interesting debate. Is he going to win? Is he going to keep that streak alive? I'd say absolutely. But as we said, and I mean, talk about a lot in this sport, momentum is everything. And this team doesn't have a whole lot of that going for them right now. And the window is closing on the 8th title. I think he'd have to execute that in the next 1 to 2 seasons. I think if you're going past 21, 22, as he continues to, let's face it, age, and his skills may regress, and they've probably regressed a little bit this season, as you've noticed. He has to act fast, I think, if he's going to win the record-breaking 8th championship. But as far as 18 goes, I would just put this in the old memory bank and write it off and focus on how you can make 2019 success. So before 4th all time, he's, as I said, on the wins list. I think when it's all said and done, the March for 84, 85 is going to pass some legends there. Roval Trip, Yarborough. 93, can he do it? And whatever happens, the reality is his legacy is unquestionable. Jimmie Johnson is going to go down, and whether you like him or not, I know he has a long allegiance of fans, but he also has a lot of people out there that don't like him and don't. It's similar to what Gordon went through, and then as Gordon's career was winding down on the back end, a lot of folks started to respect Jeff Gordon for his accomplishments on the racetrack, and not so much about liking or disliking him based on his personality. But the focus for the 48 team, I think, is simple in 19, or in the next couple of weeks when the offseason hits here. Secure sponsorship, keep the program strong, get it back to where it once was. Try to squeak out the win, and then if you can get lucky enough, be in position for championship number 8. So Austin Dillon, more playoff heartbreak for this individual. This is RCR has not had fast cars. We've talked about this so much in previous episodes. Austin Dillon has won 2 of the crowning achievements you can win in this sport. 2 of the biggest races. If you're going to win 2 races in your career, then it's half bad to have the Daytona 500 and the Charlotte Coca-Cola 600. mighty impressive. But these were done on fuel. Okay, the first one, fuel mileage gamble. Right place, right time. Gets the win. It's pretty cool. Wrecks out Eric Almirola, who should have won the Daytona 500. That's just me armchair quarterbacking. I'm saying what I think. I don't really care. I think that it was Dillon. Again, when it's the last lap, you got to go for it. But that was Almirola as he stole it from him. So I think a fresh outlook for 19 is that this is going to be a younger team. So, Danny Hemric is joining RCR. So younger core, they're going to try to rebuild RCR, as RCR has been an organization much like Rush Fenway Racing. Glory days in the 90s seem to be stuck in a bit of a rut now, just hanging on by a thread for survival. Try to lose the moniker of gambling. They don't want to be that team that the 3-car wants to win races based on speed and merit, not let's pull a fuel mileage gamble or let's see what happens on old tires. I think you shred that, and Austin Dillon wants to win a race in decisive fashion. No pit strategy required here. Just go out there and be the best car on the racetrack. And there's times where the number 3 has looked pretty good. They look pretty good at Michigan in August. I think they've looked really good. It's just, this is disappointing. And the top 5s are just, again, it just goes back to the speed. It's diminishing each year. So top 5s and top 10s have diminished since 2016. His first playoffs season. So this is his 3rd consecutive year in the playoffs. That's something you can build on. Of course, even though I'm critical, and I am being highly critical here of RCR and the number 3 car, although I can admit that, 3 consecutive playoff appearances is something that they should take great pride in and can build on and can get this team to, I'm not going to say the glory days of RCR, but get it to where you have an opportunity to compete with Stuart Haas and Joe Gibbs and Hendrick, and not just be seen as a team that is going to go out there and try to roll the dice all the time. And they got to get those cars faster. They just seem to have not had fast cars since 2016. Get in the right position for them, and who knows where they can go. Eric Jones. So I'm going to call Eric Jones. He's got to bounce back from the miserable playoff performance. I think he just won the pole. Looked like things were going his way. He ended the fall. Going into the fall, into the end of the summer on a high note. He was runner up in Indianapolis. Was looking really well. Looking forward to the playoffs. He wins the pole at Vegas and just seems to could never get it going. And now I think how he bounces back from this, that's the pace for his 2019 season. I think he has to just continue, and he's still fairly young. Eric Jones is 23 years old. I think he'll be 23 in 2019. Hasn't even yet really realized his full potential. He's not even at the peak of his career yet, and he's already accomplished a lot by winning Daytona, making the playoffs, and as I said, the hot streak that he had into the playoffs, he's cooled off. So if he finds a way to put this in the right direction in 2018, could find himself in position for a win, and just to finish the season strong and focus on what's going to transpire in 2019 and improve on the positioning, and just find a way to not come unglued. And with the impending hire and acquisition of Martin Truex Jr., he's clearly he is the future of JGR, as Eric Jones. JGR is looking to move on from Suarez. Daniel Suarez is not official yet, but it's basically, it just hasn't been announced yet. Let's put it that way. So he's in their long-term plans, as he replaced Matt Kenseth last year. They've rushed him into the 20 car, and now they seem to be confident enough that they can move on from Daniel Suarez, that this is Eric Jones's team. As Kyle Busch is still fairly young himself, but he's got a few years there on Eric Jones, and Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin are on the back ends. Or they're toward the twilight of their career. They're I don't know how much longer they're going to be around. However, Jones has got many years left in the organization and in the 20 car, and he's going to gain a lot of valuable seat time for the rest of 2018, and this is only his second year in the Cup Series. And his average finish has improved. He's now through to 29 races. He's got a 10.3 as opposed to his 14.6, which is still pretty impressive for the second team at Furniture Row last year. And Jones, as I said, defending Rookie of the Year, tremendous upside for him. I think this playoff debacle just isn't going to really jeopardize anything that JGR has planned for him in the future, and I think this team will bounce back rather nicely in 2019 and have a chance to be in the same position next year, but only moving on maybe to the round of 12 and maybe even to the Final Four. So Denny Hamlin, highly inconsistent year for Denny. Just its 11 teams just been plagued by poor performance, poor luck, whatever that case may be. No wins this late into the season. I think he's in a similar position he was in. This seems to be mirroring his 2013 season, where he did end up winning a race to keep that streak alive since 2006, his rookie year. He won the final race in 2013 at Homestead. This was, again, this is tied for maybe his worst season of his career. How can this 2018, can it get any worse than it has? And now that Hamlin is eliminated from the playoff, has looked really weak throughout the entire season. Has not been a factor to do much, and that's just for whatever reason or another. Has not had pretty fast cars at times. It just for whatever reason can't put together a finish that can propel them to compete and to keep their head afloat with some of the teams that have got it dialed in. And Hamlin, I think, for him, the focus is find consistency and don't let the failures of this early playoff exit linger to the rest of the season and even into next season. As you said, I think Hamlin is one of those guys, when he's streaking and doing well, could be unbeatable on the track. He's one of the best drivers out there. But when he gets unraveled and things are not going his way, tends to come undone, completely unglued. And you saw that in 2010. He was one win away from taking the trophy from Jimmie Johnson, and just for whatever reason or another, lost momentum going in and just had a miserable race at Homestead, and we all know how that ended for him. So he has 5 wins in 3. Maybe it's time for him to move on from the crew chief as well, Michael Wheeler. He's 5 wins with him in 3 years on the job. He'll be 38 in 2009. So how many good years does he have left? How long is he going to be in the 11 car? As Christopher Bell is emerging as a top-tier star in the Xfinity Series and is in Joe Gibbs's plans certainly sooner than later to go with the Cup, that how much longer does Denny Hamlin get? How long is the leash going to be for him if he has another off-season in 2019? He has to try to recapture some of the glory he had in 2014 when he made the Final Four. Just recapture some of that magic, even if it's just to get a few more wins next season and put yourself in a position to where you can. I think at one point I predicted he would have an opportunity to run for the championship, and it's been non-existent at times for him. And there's been times where, as I said, he's looked dangerously good and looked like a legitimate championship threat. Not the case this year, even into last year. And now the acquisition of Truex and the rise of Erik Jones, does that put any kind of pressure for him to amp up his performance? Does the 11 car have to get better? Because if you look at all 4 Gibbs cars this season, we all know Kyle Busch does magnificent things on a weekly basis. Daniel Suarez has done fairly well considering his circumstances, and Erik Jones goes on and makes the playoffs, wins Daytona. Denny Hamlin hasn't won anything and could get shut out. I think there's a good opportunity for him to win a race from the tracks we have here, like Talladega. He was 1 win there in 2014. Kansas, 1 win in 2012. and we all know his history at Martinsville, highly successful there at his home state track, 5 wins. Last win there was 2015. He swept Texas in 2010. He's got 2 wins there. 1 win at Phoenix in 2012. And, of course, he wins the season finale in 2013 at Homestead, keeping the streak alive back then. Can he do it this year? I'm going to say no. I don't think he's going to win a race this year. I think this is truly just a off year for him, something that you're going to go back to the drawing board in the off season. I said maybe moving on from the crew chief, Michael Wheeler, and putting someone else in there with Denny, fresh start, kind of control alt delete, start from scratch, and see what they can do with the 18 car as Joe Gibbs Racing anticipates, as I said, the arrival of Martin Truex Jr. and Eric Jones is only going to get better, right? And Christopher Bell is in there knocking on the door in the Xfinity Series, might just find his way into Cup, replacing Hamlin in 2020. I don't know. That's just me speculating on armchair quarterbacking, but that's in all likelihood could transpire. It could be the case. So we're going to shift gears now from the playoffs and the Roval, and just take a breather here. And that was a lot to talk about, a lot of action, and this unique structure that was the Roval. But I'm going to move on to an historic event in the K&N series, the K&N Pro S, is Hailie Deegan. 17-year-old Hailie Deegan wins at Idaho, and a last lap bump and run on a teammate. This is record breaking for Deegan. I think she's 5th in the standings with 2 races left to go. It's probably not going to claim the championship in this series. Enormous upside for her. At only age 17, has a lot of charisma. It's just wow. It's racing with a top tier team in that series, in the K&N Pro S series. Credible sponsors in Napa, Mobil 1, Monster Energy. There's no need to rush her, I think, into a truck ride or Xfinity series. There's a potential to, I think, of all the female drivers that have come through the sport in the last 5-6 years, this is the post-Danica era. So we're trying to move past Danica Patrick. And again, I never like comparing, well, this is the next so-and-so. There's no next Danica Patrick. Hailie Deegan is just going to be Hailie Deegan. And I think she has got tremendous upside, as you said, just oozing with talent, charisma, could find herself in a top-tier position in any of the series, Xfinity, trucks, or Cup in the future. But there's no need to rush this. I think a few more years and K&N's required. Cut your teeth, roll off a few more victories, and then it's, who knows? The ceiling is what the ceiling is for Hailie Deegan. Hailie Deegan could go on to be one of the greatest female drivers of all time, one of the greatest drivers of all time, period. But now it's pretty neat that she was able to triumph and win at Idaho. So as I said, there's a few press releases here we're going to read. So it said she became the first woman to win in NASCAR's K&N West Series. She executed that with a bump and run move on her teammate to win on Saturday at the Meridian Idaho Speedway. So the 17-year-old daughter of Herald X Game motocross rider Brian Deegan won in her 18th start. That's what's even more impressive. It's not the fact. I think going into this, those who followed her through the last couple of seasons or heard about what she could potentially do given the opportunity, this win is not shocking at all. I think it was just in 18 starts. It's fairly impressive, but you kind of knew the inevitable that she would win a race here on the K&N circuit, which consists of the East and West series. Neither series has seen a female winner before Deegan. And she said in a press release with NASCAR, this has to be the best day of my life right here. There's a lot of excitement. And if you get a chance to see the winner circle celebration for her, it is just pure jubilation in her voice. Quite an accomplishment for an up-and-coming racer that I think is going to have a great deal of fanfare and is going to execute and find a way to keep rewriting the history book. She said it doesn't get any better than this, and it does not. So Deegan, who had 4 top 5 finishes, including 2 run-up finishes in the series heading into this event, and sits 5th in the standings, as we said, nudged out teammate Cole Rouse on the way to turn 1 in the final lap of the Napa Parts Idaho 208. She said this: "I was in bed last night thinking, if it comes down to the last lap and I'm second, I'm a car length off him, what I'm gonna do." And Deegan said, "I found that I turned one spot and I knew exactly I had to do it there." And she says here, it goes on, and this is directly from her: "I was doing it to some other people, just getting right underneath them and get them a little light to get to them. Not wrecking loose, nothing crazy, but enough to just get a little under them and make the pass happen. We did that. I know exactly what I had to do in the last lap. We did it, we executed, and we made it happen." That is, as I said, really impressive still at that age too, at the age of 17, and not a whole lot of experience in the series. 18 starts, and to roll off your first win, it's mighty impressive. So there's also here, she posted Hailie Deegan, that is pronounced, on September 29th to her social media account, 2018 goals, and you can check them all off. And this is some pretty interesting foreshadowing here. Top 10 in a race, check. Qualify in a top 5, check. Finish in the top 5, check. Qualify top 3, check. Finish top 3, check. Lead a race, check. And get the pole, check. And then they have the win the race was the final. Can cross that off now. This Hailie Deegan is a winner in the NASCAR K&amp Pro Series West, and it drew a lot of praise from Kevin Harvick, the Cup Series driver, who recognized her talents when he raced against her in the K&amp Pro Series at a Bakersfield, California event this year. Afterward, Harvick would go on to say, "I think that as far as potential and reach and just racing knowledge and getting in a car as young as she is, she would be the one that I would pluck out of the series and say, that's the one we want to be a part of," he said. That's just the highest compliments you can be paid by one of the current greats, and I think it's going to go down as one of the all-time greats in NASCAR history. It's Kevin Harvick. It's huge for her, and that is, again, the K&N series. If you didn't get a chance to see that, I would suggest going out of your way to look that up and have a look at that race and to see that in the winner's circle. So we'll go look here. There's another article on Deegan, as this was a 1-2-3 sweep for Bill McAnally Racing, with Deegan collecting the win, Russ finishing second, and the teammate Derek Kraus finishing third. And I said there was going to be any at this point in time. I don't think it's racing. I think the teammates should be no retaliation from the part of Kraus as far as he's concerned. I think it's just racing. And she said he wasn't happy at all after the race. This is from Deegan, which I'm not surprised. I don't blame him. I've been mad. I'd be mad too. He's just looking for his first win of the season, and so was I. At that point, everyone's friends until there's 3 laps to go. You see your teammates, and you take out teammates in the NASCAR Cup Series. It happens. It's racing. Everyone is out there for themselves. You're looking to get that win. Absolutely. So this is a groundbreaking victory for Hailie Deegan, and I hope that she continues to gain traction and try to figure out maybe to see her in a Truck Series or an Xfinity event next year. But I still think a couple more seasons from my opinion, amateur quarterbacking this in the K&N Pro Series or K&N East go a long way in developing Deegan as an all-round race car driver, not just in this in the stock cars, but also maybe in some late models or some other open wheel series, perhaps. But at this point in time, this is a step in the right direction. And Deegan here admits that she's in no hurry and understands that she still has a lot to learn to do. She says, "The reason we lost Vegas is because I jammed the gear. Just a rookie mistake," she said. Her runner-up finish. "It was just experience. I don't know these things, and we're learning as we go. We're still trying to figure out a plan for next year. But I don't really want to move up necessarily to trucks and not be ready for that, because you're on a big stage and you're in front of a lot of people. You might as well get all those little kinks out of, while you're in the K&N series before you go to the trucks. So that would be the natural progression, I think, would be to go to the trucks and then potentially the Xfinity series, and then who knows, 5-6 years we could be discussing Hailie Deegan in the Cup Series, maybe making the playoffs. And the TRD program, the Toyota program that she is part of at this point, Toyota, made this whole effort for her a reality, and they've had several high-profile drivers move through its system, including Kyle Larson, Eric Jones, and Xfinity standout Christopher Roval. And this is from the executive vice president of NASCAR, Steve O'Donnell. He says, Hailie Deegan has been so close in her first win many times, and we are extremely happy for her and that she realized that goal on Saturday. She's worked extremely hard for this, and it is great to see the effort rewarded with a victory, whether male or female. At the end of the day, it all comes down to winning. Absolutely. That's why you strap on the fire suit and put on the helmet every week. It's just to win. And it's why, I don't know why we all want to scold Jimmie Johnson for going for the win. He's doing what he had to do. So there's the comparisons, of course, here. They're going to see the next Danica. There's no next Danica. It's just Hailie Deegan. So this is the post-Danica Patrick era in racing. As you know, Danica's had an opportunity. Didn't really make the most of it, I thought. As you look at Danica's statistics, she won the IndyCar race at Japan in 2008. That was, at that time, groundbreaking in itself. Good on her. And in IndyCar, just, led the Indy 500 at time. It was it's tough for me to discuss this because I think Danica, like he said, a huge Danica mark, and I thought I've actually had a chance to win a Cup a few years back, and given the right opportunity, and it didn't have to be Daytona. It was an impressive run. As I said, her best finish ever was a 6th place in the fall of 2014. That was a race in the end of August of 14, and 6th place run at Atlanta in the 10 car was really good. So she was the 2013 pole sitter, as we all know. Never finished higher than 24th in the standings. So it was in 15 and 16 in Cup. And in 191 Cup starts, no wins, no top 5s, and 7 top 10s. Not exactly dazzling numbers, but for what they were at the time, I think Danica, at the very least, generated some interest in stock cars and females running stock cars. And so Harvick, going back to Harvick and his praise for Deegan out in March, it was an article. This is from the words of the 2014 Cup Champions, where he praised at the time she was 16, so 16-year-old pro driver. Harvick was fresh off competing in the K&N West season opener Thursday night at the Kern County Raceway in his hometown of Bakersfield, California. And among his 22 competitors was Deegan, who was making her first start in the series driving for Bill McNally Racing. And when asked Friday at the Auto Club Speedway about what talent he discovered in the 175-lap race, Harvick didn't mention 16-year-old race winner Derek Kraus, the teammate of Deegan. Deegan, the daughter, who, as you all know, of X Game athlete Brian Deegan, was Harvick's answer. If I had to pick one person, as we read this, he said, one person to say, all right, that's the person KHI, Harvick's sports and celebrity marketing agency, would want to represent and has the most potential, it would probably be Hailie Deegan. Harvick said she did really well. And just her second start at the time, so we're going back to an article that was from previously in the year. She has won in the K&N series, and Deegan started 8th and finished 7th. And Harvick, who led 132 laps of the 175 from the pole, got knocked back in the field late in the race and briefly ran around Deegan. Obviously, they have what I would call it a unique racing heritage with their family. With Brian, Harvick said, I got to race with her a little bit there, and at the end of the race, she did a great job in the car. I think as far as potential and reach and racing knowledge and getting in the car as young as she is, that would be the one I would pluck out of the series and say, that's the one you want to be a part of, because she has a lot of potential and already has done some racing experience in multiple vehicles. That was fun to see. So that was directly from Harvick, who, as I said, it was his praise for the brand new winner in the K&amp Series, West Pro Series, Hailie Deegan. So we're going to move on from that triumph to what we touched on last week, and that's the potential, at the time was potential, but was unofficial at the time, acquisitions or new drivers for new driver lineup for JTG Doherty and RCR in 2019. So they're going to go with Ryan Preece. The JTG Doherty team, as I was speculated, will compete for Rookie of the Year, as JTG Doherty is going all in on a youth movement, retaining Chris Buescher. So he will remain with, this will be his third season in the car next year, as he will remain with them in 2019 and beyond. And this is again, fresh face for our JTG Doherty after 5 seasons with AJ Allmendinger. And they made the playoffs, won a race there, and now it's time to wipe the slate clean and give Ryan Preece an opportunity to see what the New England native from Connecticut can do. Again, great pedigree in New England, and in Connecticut, it's Joey Logano and Jerry Nadeau had tremendous, as you know, Logano is still doing tremendous things in the Cup Series, and Jerry Nadeau went on to compete for several years in Cup and win a race for Hemric Motorsports in Atlanta. And he's eighth all-time in the wins list in the Wheeling Modified Series, where he was the 22 wins and 155 career starts, and was the 2013 champion there. So Ryan Preece, as I said, we talked about it last week too, his 5 career Cup starts. That was for the 98 team. I'm not going to touch too much on as I gave my honest opinion on the potential impending hiring of Ryan Preece and both Daniel Hemric, but I'll read the press release, and I'm not going to get into the statistics. As we said, we touched on that already last week. So this is the announcement from September 28th. JTG Doherty Racing announced today, this was on September 28th, a new driver to their 2-car lineup, signing 27-year-old Ryan Preece into a multi-year contract. So I think it's very similar to what AJ Allmendinger had in place, as he was signed on to a multi-year deal last year. Preece will join JTG Doherty Racing for its first full-time season in the Monster Energy Cup Series, starting in 2019, the Daytona 500 at Daytona International Speedway, driving the number 47 Chevrolet Camaro. And this is a quote from Ryan Preece. Tommy Lasorda says, "The difference between impossible and possible lies in a man's determination, and I feel that JTG Doherty Racing has just that. It's been many years of fighting for opportunities to compete and win races at NASCAR's highest level, and it's nice to officially say that JTG Doherty Racing is my new home for 2019. I look forward to not only racing, but working with the team, as well as to build speed and create a name for myself here." And he went on to thank the owners, Tad and Jody Deschechter, Brad Doherty, and Preece here, I think, and we talked about it last week, untapped potential. I think he would win. He won the 2 races with JGR, as we know, in Xfinity. JTG Doherty is not bringing in really fast cars. As we know, the team is sort of found itself crippled by this and handicapped by this. So now I think for them it's to develop an alliance. I don't think they're going to switch manufacturers. As I said, there could be potential to align themselves with Joe Gibbs, as they already if they were to go to Toyota. But I think this late into the season, I would think it's highly unlikely that they're going to switch manufacturer. But I think aligning yourself with Hemric Motorsports maybe could get the performance a little bit better for JT Doherty, because this team has not performed well and seems to have only show up when it comes to restrictor plate racing at this time. Their best finish for both drivers this year, both at Daytona, hasn't looked really that competitive anywhere else. And so it says, word to date, he's ran. Okay, so this is going back to the press release here. So JT Doherty Racing, Preece joins them from his recent stint with Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series, where to date he has ran 9 races with 1 win, 4 top 5 finishes, and 6 top 10s in 2018. And out of a total of 49 Xfinity Series races, he has 2 wins in Iowa in 2017, Bristol in 2018, 8 top 5 finishes, 11 top 10 finishes in his career, 1 pole award. And Preece also, as we said, ran the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series in 2015 with the number 98 car, And aside from his accomplishments in one NASCAR's Premier Series, the Berlin, Connecticut native is most well known for his Northeast racing in the NASCAR Wheeling Modified Tour, as we said, since 2007. We already talked about his wins there, and it just goes on to say here that Preece is a member of NASCAR's next program, class of 2013 and 14, and we're really looking forward to having Ryan join our team for the Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Wheeling Modified Series Tour, and has now been given a great opportunity to compete at NASCAR's highest level full time. And we really believe in him and think that he's a great addition to the team. And Preece is set to finish out the season with Joe Gibbs in the Xfinity Series in 18 and become a permanent fixture with JTG Doherty racing in 2019. So that was the press release officially announcing the hiring of Ryan Preece for the number 47 JTG Doherty car in the Cup Series. So now we move on to Daniel Hemric, who became official last week as well that he would be joining RCR. He's had two solid seasons with them in the Xfinity Series. The Kannapolis, North Carolina native grew up rooting for Dale Earnhardt Sr. in RCR. So it's kind of funny how years later, he's another Kannapolis native is going to race for RCR. And then again, it's the youth movement for RCR. I think RCR here needs a fresh face for the 31 car. Still some speculation if they're going to run the 8 or 31 for this team in 19, as again, as people like to just, I think, overanalyze, is that, okay, this is Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s number years ago, DEI. They asked Dale Jr. what his feelings would be on Hemric running the 8. He would give his blessing. He said it's not his number any longer, and he would like to see the 8 back on the racetrack. It depends, because it'd be an interesting concept if they have the 3 and the 8 both in the same stable. I think that would be nostalgic, if anything. So 2 career starts for Hemric as he ran the Roval and did fairly well on the Roval as well. I might add to his credit this week. So 2 Cup starts. The first one was back at Richmond in the spring. It was uneventful day for him there. He's second in the Xfinity standings now in 2018. Was part of the Final Four last year. Still could end up with a win in Xfinity by the end of the season, as he's got some time here for the next several weeks, and could end up potentially winning the Xfinity Series championship. Not out of it yet. And RCR's youth movement, as I said, could breathe new life into an organization that's really lagging and has struggled to find consistency over the past several years. And teaming up with Austin Dillon, there's chemistry there. As I said, he's known Austin Dillon for several years, and I think a gritty performance and he had in Xfinity this past year has elevated him to second in the standings. So I think this is an opportunity he has to potentially, I don't know, I focused a lot last week when I spoke of Hemric that he has never won a race in any capacity, trucks or Xfinity. I mean, that's not to set the bar. As we said, look at Jimmie Johnson and Tony Stewart didn't have stellar Xfinity careers. They went on to enjoy tremendous success and are going to be future Hall of Famers in the Cup. Not saying that's going to be the same path Daniel Hemric is going to take, or that's what's exactly going to be bestowed upon him. However, can never really judge a driver where they're going to end up based on what they do in truck or Xfinity, because you had standouts who were mighty successful in both those series and went on to really become duds in the Cup Series. So can't really say anything for Daniel Hemric. It's just going to have to wait and see, I think, with him. And the last time a rookie was in the 31 car, if he does retain the number 31, was in 97 with Mike Skinner, and he ended up winning the Rookie of the Year. So that could be some foreshadowing and a good omen for Mr. Hemric. And the last 3 drivers to compete in the 31 car, Robbie Gordon, Jeff Burton, and Ryan Newman, all found a winner's circle. So again, that's something for Hemric to look forward to. No pressure there. Maybe he can find himself in the winner's circle in 2019, or if not, 2021. This is the official press release from RCR. Richard Childress Racing has promoted Daniel Hemric to drive the 31 Chevrolet Camaro and the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series beginning in 2019. Hemric, 27, boast back-to-back NASCAR Xfinity Series playoff berths at RCR, including the championship 4 appearance at Homestead during his rookie season. That's impressive in itself. So good for him. While some kids get their start riding bikes and training with training wheels, Hemric was championing go-karts at the age of 5, and within the next 6 years, his driving accolades included 11 wins and Concord, North Carolina Speedway Track Championship. And he also did some late models, followed with the same success, 60 victories in back-to-back Legend Pro Car Championships in 08 and 09, and the National Legend Car Pro Championship and 2 Summer Shootout Series titles in 2009 and 13. And he would go on to win the Champions Racing Association JEG CRA All-Star Tour Championship in 2012 and the Southern Superior Series Championship in 2013. So obviously, he has not won championships in the Truck Series. He has an opportunity to do that this year in Xfinity, but quite an accomplished racer through the years. As I said, I knew very little about him, as when he became a standout in the Truck Series, I had to do a lot of research here and get to know who Daniel Hemric really is. And I think he's, looking back on it in hindsight, I think he's going to be a tremendous acquisition for RCR, and I think he's going to have a good rookie season and certainly could win Rookie of the Year in the 31 car. So it says in here, we're just going to skip through some of this here, comb through. It says, before joining RCR, Hemric drove 2 seasons in the Camping World Truck Series, as we said, and in 50 starts, the Kannapolis native scored 15 top 5 and 30 top 10 results, along with 2 top 10 finishes in the Driver Championship point standings. And this is from RCR owner, chairman Richard Childress. We've had our eye on Daniel since he raced with Austin and Dillon in the Legend cars into Legends Racing, and we move him up to the Cup Series when the time was right. We believe that that time is now, and Daniel has won championships in just about everything he's raced, and I hope that we can add an Xfinity Series title before the season's end. He battled for the championship right up to the end last season and has had another strong year in 2018, and will represent RCR in the Cup Series along with iconic brands including Caterpillar and Chevrolet. And Hemric, who grew up in Kannapolis, as we said, in North Carolina, same hometown as the Earnhardts. The late Dale Sr. is ready to join NASCAR's Premier Series, driving the 31 side alongside longtime friend and veteran teammate Austin Dillon. Hemric joined several other Cup regulars who have successfully risen through the RCR acclaimed Xfinity Series program. And this is from Hemric. Ever since I was a kid growing up in Kannapolis, I followed and rooted for RCR, and I enjoyed competing against Austin and Ty years ago, and we became close friends. And along the way, my dream has always been to race for championships in the NASCAR Cup Series, and I work hard to get there. And those who know me and have supported me know I take nothing for granted, and this time has come for me to take that next step. And I want to thank Richard for believing in me and providing such an amazing opportunity. I also look forward to working together closely with Austin in the number 3 car during the 2019 season. So that is the official press release from RCR, as Daniel Hemric and Ryan Preece are confirmed as 2 candidates for the Rookie of the Year in 2019 in the Cup Series. So before we get on to waving our white flag and the checker flag on this episode, there's 5 drivers to watch at Dover. We'll get to that in a moment, but we're just going to quickly handicap the next round, the round of 12. So this is who some of the quote-unquote analysts or experts of in the field believe will not make the next round. So Alex Bowman is atop that list, as he's an underdog this whole way through this playoff, and I think people just haven't expected him to advance to the second round. So there's no pressure there. It's just relax, enjoy yourself. If you can defy the odds and find a way into the round of 8, I think that's what Bowman could focus on. He hasn't won a stage all year, and we saw what that, like I said, that did for Jimmie Johnson in points in the first round. So he's glad to be, and this is a quote from Bowman. He says he's glad to make it in, and a lot of people said we were going to be one of the guys out, and to make it in and to prove some of these guys wrong definitely makes me feel good. So it's a confidence builder if anything for him. It's momentum. Bowman is sort of, if you look at that quote when he said he's glad to make it in, it definitely wants to, it makes him feel good. I think building on that, making the 88 his own, that's what really the primary focus is going to be in the final races of the season, and he's done absolutely tremendous job in year one, officially driving the 88 car. So Almirola, who's had a breakthrough year for Stewart-Haas, is predicted to also see his Waterloo in the round of 12. So he almost won the Daytona 500. I think that's what stands out. And he's had a really good card at New Hampshire and a really good card at Richmond. And at Vegas, he had an extremely fast car as well. So he's been in position to run up front and compete for wins, but just not quite there yet with his other Stewart-Haas teammates. So that could potentially cost him. And that really, I think the tiebreaker, that run at Richmond, saved him from elimination at the Roval. And so not sure what to expect out of him. He's had good runs he's run really well at Dover. He's run really well. And Talladega, anybody can, as we know, run up front and compete for the win there. We'll see what happens with him. But I think he could survive this next round. But I'm thinking it's not going to be for him this season. Looking forward to next year. So this is what he says. This is the direct quote from Mr. Almirola. He says, "I'm really proud and really blessed to be in this position. We've got a great opportunity here with Stewart-Haas Racing and moving on to the round of 12. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. We're moving on to the round of 12, and we're going to give them hell at Dover." So he's got the mindset by that quote. He wants to win, and I think all or nothing. You have nothing to lose. If I were Almirola, I'd try to gamble and put yourself in a position to advance to that next round, even if that would mean completely unorthodox approach and trying to steal one from some of the top tier drivers that are in the playoff. Kyle Larson, so he's listed here as well in the back end. He's had speed all year. Just has not found the winner's circle. And if you watch at the end of the Charlotte race, he just, again, he got lucky with that break with Earnhardt. If that was, again, I don't think it was coincidental. It's just coincidence. I don't think it was something that you can read too much in. I don't think it was a conspiracy or anybody meant to wreck. I think that's just the product of racing. And Kyle Larson found lightning in a bottle that day and was able to advance. And he has to win. I think for him to continue on past this next round, he has to translate some of that speed into victory, or it's not going to be long for him. He will not be long for the playoffs if that continues to happen. And there's a quote from Larson here. He said, "There's some good tracks coming up for us, aside from Talladega. Anybody can be good there, but we'll see how it goes." So a little bit of optimism, a little bit of pessimism there. I think when you had the kind of season he's had, and the expectation was coming into the season, he was predicted by quite a few publications to either be the runner-up in the championship or actually win the championship. That you have that certain level of performance you have to live up to, and when you're not quite living up to that, it can give a driver fits. And I think that's where, at this point late into the year, that's where Larson is, and his focus might be more on 2019 and less on the remaining races in 2018. And Chase Elliott is also predicted to face elimination in this round. And Hendrick improved their speed going into the playoffs. You looked at how well Bowman's done and how well Elliott has done by winning. Had been on a pretty good wave of momentum since winning at Watkins Glen. And it says here that at Richmond he was fourth, and he has led some laps in 6 of the past 12 races. So that's a bonus for them. They're running well under pressure. They are leading some laps and are in position to win races. Just didn't have an opportunity to do that last week, but had a still pretty clean finish. And why he won't move on, I think, and it's pointed out here that he has 5 finishes 29th or worst all year. A couple more of those, and it's going to be to the house for Elliott for this year. And his quote here, "I'm just glad that we're moving on, and I am looking forward to the next 3 because there are some good tracks for us." And I think if you look at his pedigree and his father, Bill Elliott, had won many times at Talladega, and be nice to see, for nostalgia, to see him in the winner's circle at Talladega and at Dover, as we're going to talk about soon, about his extremely stout record at the Monster Mile. We'll touch on that in a few moments. So those are the 4 drivers that are predicted by ESPN to fall victim in this round. We'll see if that's an incorrect forecast in 3 weeks, won't we? And we'll move on to now we're going to wave the white flag on this episode and go to 5 drivers who you should watch at Dover. And I think are potential drivers that could win the race. So the big 3 have won 3 of the last 4 Dover races. We've talked about that. 1 apiece for all 3. So spreading around the wealth there for the 3 drivers. And so the 5 drivers to watch, obviously Kyle Larson. I think Kyle Larson, he narrowly escaped the elimination, as we talked about here in this episode extensively in long form, that he's now fortunate enough to have escaped that. He's in the round of 12. Focus on the win. 4 top 5 finishes and 19 career starts at Dover. Tremendous record for him. And he won the pole there in June of 2018. And 2 runner-up finishes at this racetrack, June of 16 and June of 17. And he still has to find a way to find that winner's circle. Still in the hunt for the win in 2018. That could be all the motivation he needs. Win this one early, advance into the round of 8, and then it goes on from there. But I think if Larson is going to, his best opportunity, I think, is to win at Dover if he's going to win in these next 3. We'll see what happens with him, but I think he is a driver that you can't sleep on this weekend at Dover. And Daniel Suarez, he's made the news a lot lately, but his uncertain future is quite murky at best. But I think now he's emerged as the front runner, as we said last week, for the 41 car. If that does indeed come to fruition, that'd be quite an accomplishment for a driver who has only been 2 years on the job in the Cup Series, so that'd be really good on him. He's third. He was third in the race in June. Ran extremely well. He's got remarkable statistics here. I think of any driver that is in this, other than Jimmie Johnson, that I put into this 5 drivers you should keep your eye on at Dover. His stats are mind blowing. In 3 Cup starts, he's finished no worse than 6th. The good run for him, I think, improves his case to get signed by the 41 team in Stuart Haas. Or obviously, a win would be tremendous, even if he's not in the playoff picture. I think it just would solidify his positioning to put himself in the 41 car. And I think that what he could do next year in the 41 car is potentially make Joe Gibbs sorry that they passed up on him and moved on from him so soon. In the fall of 2006, what propelled his championship hopes there was the Xfinity race, that he would win there in 16 in the fall race. And I think in 6 Xfinity starts, he had finished 2 top 5s and 5 top 10 finishes. That was obviously the catalyst to setting himself up for the title run in 16, and in 2 career Camping World Truck Series races, 2 runner-up finishes, 15 and 16. For what reason or another, Daniel Suarez knows how to get around Dover really well and has had remarkable races in such a short period of time. I think he could be a sleeper pick for someone if you're going to be gambling on the race this Sunday. I think he's someone to keep your eyes closely on. And obviously, Truex Jr., red hot lately. He's had a tremendous playoff to this point. Could have easily won all 3 of these races in the first round. 4 consecutive top 5 finishes in the last 4 Dover races. He won there in the fall of 2016. And his first career win was here for DEI in 2007. Anytime Truex Jr. visited, this is sort of a home track for him. This is very close to where he was from in New Jersey. So I think this is, like I said, a home advantage for him. And he's renowned racer from the East Coast. And I think anytime he comes to Dover in any capacity, in any car, he can win. But just this would be a good way for him to, again, like Larson, relieve the pressure and get the win early, and then focus on the next round, and then just sort of go for the wins at Talladega and Kansas, where he has had tremendous success at Kansas and would like to win at Talladega, as he's never won there in his career. And obviously Jimmie Johnson, we've talked a lot about him in this episode. 11 Dover wins, that speaks for itself. Swept both in 2002, 2009, and the whole Afro Circus victory lane there celebration in 2011 in June. That was quite entertaining, was it not? So he has to put the Roval debacle completely behind him, focus on what's next, career win number 84, and keeping his streak alive, one win since his rookie season in 2002. And Chase Elliott could solidify himself as a legitimate championship contender if he were to visit the winner's circle here at Dover. In 5 career starts, he has 4 top to 5 finishes, runner-up in the fall of 2017, and has finished no worse than 12th in 5 career starts at this track. And I said last year that run-up finish to me was the turning point for him that nearly carried him to the Final Four. And the 2017 edition of the playoffs. So Chase Elliott, I think, is a driver to watch. So I think really at this stage, I know the playoff drivers that we didn't mention here are going to give it their all and do their very best to capture a victory at the Monster Mile. But I think those 5 drivers are the drivers you should keep an eye on. And I think I would not at all be in shock if one of those 5 were to claim the checker flag. And since we are on the topic of checker flags, I'm going to wave the checkered flag on this edition of Super Fantastic Above Average Racing Spectacular. And I just want to tell everyone out there that we're working on some. I know that we didn't get to the bonus episodes from late September. Those are still going to be on the way. As I said, the circumstances have delayed those recordings, and they are on the way, I promise. And also, these are the topics we're going to cover for the bonus episodes in the month of October. So we're going to go back into the Wayback Machine and cover the 2000 Winston 500. That was at Talladega. That was Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s final Cup win. As you know, he would tragically leave us in the Daytona 500 the following season in 2001. And we're going to chronicle the career of Dan Wheldon, the English racer who passed away in 2011 at a race in Las Vegas. So we're going to chronicle and celebrate the great career of Dan Wheldon coming up on another bonus episodes in October. And also the 1999 Marlboro 500. That is the season finale for the Champ Car Series kart in 1999. That was also the race that Canadian racer Greg Moore also lost his life in October 31st of 1999. So we're going to have some, under tragic circumstances, going to cover a highly entertaining race for Champ Car, as that was their season finale, as a lot of prominent drivers would go on to jump ship and go to the IndyCar Series the following year in 2000. So that was one of the last great races that the Champ Car Series put on. And also, we're going to cover in 1998 the Pepsi 400. So that was the first race at the World Center of Racing that was under the lights. It was delayed by some fires there in the summer of July of 1998. Postponed the race to October. It was quite a sight to see the cars at those speeds and running at Daytona under the lights for the very first time. And that, of course, that race has become a staple on the tour each and every year, providing some intense racing action under the lights there at Daytona. So those are the episodes that I'm going to cover in the month of October, in addition to our weekly programs. And so I just want to let everyone know that you can find this recording now on Spotify, most recently, Apple iTunes, of course, Podbean, and also links to social media accounts wherever you want to listen to this podcast and continue to support. And like I said, we're going to continue to make this a better program, and I think it's something that we're going to work hard on and hope that you are enjoying what we're putting out. And we'll do this each and every week. And as I said, we're going to do these bonus episodes. I'm going to work my hardest on getting some of those ones from September out there, and also the 4 that I have coming up for you in the month of October. So that will put an official end to this episode, and I just want to say to everyone out there, thank you for listening. I hope everyone is doing well out there and have a blessed day. And until next time, we will see ya.